at the shop. We got the frame, chassis. I'm going to start tearing it down. A few things to take off. I'll get all the accessories and all that kind of stuff torn off, and then I'll go for the big stuff like the axles, stuff like that. Trying to get the frame, everything torn down to a bare frame so that I can get it down and get it sandblasted. Before I do that, of course, I'm going to check for, repairs, like right here. Spot right there, it needs to be bent back, welded together. A few things like that is all ripped off. I'll have to rip it the rest of the way off and replace it eventually. One thing I noticed, and it's really, really hard to tell right now, but let me see if I can get this on camera. If you get down like this, you can see that the right side dips down on the rear, and it actually kind of goes up a little bit on the left side front. So I don't know if that's because of the tweaked axle up front, excuse me, or suspension, sag, could be any number of things right now. So I can't really tell for sure if it's actually twisted until I maybe get it all apart and lay it on the ground, take some measurements. I did measure corner to corner and it's almost perfect. So I know it's not bent, shifted that direction, but it very well could be twisted just a tad. So we'll see. But on with the adventure. I gotta start tearing this sucker down. Alright, I got the frame jacked up and the axle, leaf springs and everything. Just got them unbolted. If I can pull them out of here now. Carefully let this down on the jack stands. Back unbolted. Well guys, I was on a roll today. I got front axle out, back axle not. Ran into a bit of a problem. I was on a roll and I got this shackle pin out. I got these two shackle pins. Well, that one I haven't tried yet, but I think it'll probably come out okay. Got that shackle pin out. Problem is, these front ones, you can't get to the back side of them. You have to use the threads for the zert, and you thread a bolt in there and you pull them out. That one came out. These you can get to the back side and knock them out. This one I worked for 3.5, 4 hours trying to get that sucker out. I could not get it out. It's hardened steel. I've been drilling and screwing up drill bits. So I got to get some better drill bits and maybe some kind of tap that I can that'll work in hardened steel, and get a big hefty bolt threaded in there and try to get that out. But I heated it, pounded on it. I could not get that thing out. So that stopped me in my tracks. Otherwise I'd have been done today with getting the frame apart. So got to go home. I will come back again and get that damn thing out. Alright guys, it's about a week later. Finally came back with some heavier duty stuff and some ideas. So you'll see I'm drilling out the spot welds on the bottom plate of this big cross member here because it's all rusted out anyway. So it's going to have to be replaced. So might as well take the bottom plate off, and then I might actually be able to get to the back side of that bolt on the shackle. So that's what I'm doing, drilling the holes out, and then I'm just ramming a crowbar in there to break the weld, because these are just spot welds, and these are rusted, so I don't even need to do it there. But there's about 1, 2, 3, 4 more. Don't know how I'm going to get past this here, but well, I guess I can go from underneath. So, but that's where I'm at. So hopefully, because I know there's a hole that goes through, I just don't know if it goes all the way through to the pin on the inside there. So we will see. But here's what I'm doing. Get through the weld like that, and hopefully I don't knock the camera off. There it is. Broke the weld. So I got 1, 2, about 2 or 3 more to go, and this plate should come off. Okay, bad news. So got the paint, the bottom side, the belly pan of that cross member off. Like I said, it's really rusted, and a whole bunch of crap fell out of there. Rats' nests and probably hornets' nests and stuff like that. So lots of stuff in there. But I cannot get to it from the back side. So this piece here, I believe, must have a back plate to it, because it's just flat back there. I could drill a hole, but I'm thinking what I'm going to end up doing, I'm going to give my my idea a shot where I welded some nuts together, and I've got this, and this is all grade 8 stuff, so it's real tough. I'm going to jam this bolt in there as far as I can. I'm going to weld it in there, around there, and then I'm going to run this set of nuts down over the top of it, spaced out with a series of washers and spacers and things like that, to try to pull that thing out. If that doesn't seem to work, then I also have a slide hammer I can try, and that's why I have the 2 bigger nuts on the back side of this, because my slide hammer will screw right into that, and I can try to slide hammer it out. So unfortunately, that's where I'm at. But if that doesn't work, if I break everything and just break my welds and it's that stuck in there, then the next option and final option really is to shear these rivets off and take the whole assembly piece off, and then I will see if I can get to the back side of it somehow then, and if I can, I'll take it back home to my shop press and press it out. If that doesn't work, I will probably have to buy a new one somewhere. Hopefully Vintage Power Wagons has this. But those guys are awesome. They've got tons of stuff. They're really, really helpful. So big shout out to those guys. Really been a big help on this project. So cool. So that's where we're going to go from here. Okie dokie. We got that bolt's welded in now. Still hot. So I'm going to start figuring out how many of these washers I need to space it out. Figure out how much space I'm going to need. I want to get some decent grab on the threads, so I think I'm going to go with maybe that many is where I'll start. So thought about welding these together so it's just one solid spacer piece, but I figured it'd be better if I didn't, so that I can adjust as I need to. Try to get this stuff on here without touching the bolt, because it's probably still pretty hot. Start the nuts. Try and get that all lined up there. Okay, it looks like we are lined up. Alright, now time to go for the impact driver and a socket. Not even moving. A little loud. I honestly can't tell if it's moving or not. Doesn't look like it is, but ooh, this stuff's hot. Screw on now. I figured I'd screw the threads up. I almost want to say it has moved, but I can't really tell. So I have to get a big wrench on it now, I guess. Okay, snapped it right off. Unbelievable. Good news. I did start getting it out, so I still had some threads left after shearing this bolt off. Still had some threads left, so I put some more washers on, put in just a single nut on here and started ripping on it, and it finally broke loose. I heard it. That was the best sound I've heard all day. So I don't know. It seems pretty loose. I'm going to see if I can get it out. Oh yeah, it's real loose. And there it goes. Man, that sucker was in there. That's the toughest bolt or anything I've ever had to extract. That's insane. how tough that thing was stuck in there, rusted in, and it's not even that rusty. It was just seized that well. So good news, I got that sucker out. That's what I wanted. Now I can actually take this whole rear axle out. All the other bolts are loose, so I'll pull them out, jack this thing up, and get the axle out, and I will finally have a bare frame. Okay, the rear axle is loose. So, pull it out carefully. There she is. Just a frame now. And finally set that down on the ground and take a look at it. See if it wants to sit level. Super exciting update. Got the frame back from the sandblaster and it looks beautiful, ready for paint. Really happy with the way it came out. And I started doing some measurements. So the X measurements from like that corner over to that corner, and so on and so forth the rest of the way through the frame. Everything looks within tolerance, which is super good news. The only thing I'm a little worried about, I don't know if I mentioned this on one of the other updates, but I couldn't get that bolt out of the front here, the front horn, but I finally got it out, and it's mangled, so I got to do some repair work on both sides, both horns, because they're both kind of tweaked, but they are in measurement now too. On this manual I have, it says, and I was reading this as a 26 3/8 between the two horns right at the spring mount location. And when I measured it, it was like 28, almost 29 inches, or 28 and a half or so. And I was really getting a little worried that I'm not going to be able to bend those horns back 2 inches. But then I got to looking at the book, and I think that's a 28. There's just a little bit of a nick in the font, but I'm pretty sure that's 28 3/8. And then when I went and measured exactly where it tells you to measure, from right here to the other side, even though it's all goober welded here, I just estimated, it's exactly 28 3/8. So I'm good. I just have to look at it and try to figure out if these horns are twisted at all. I know they're, you can tell they're all bent out of shape and everything, and this passenger side definitely needs a lot of work because they already tried to repair it once. It's got this patch on the side, and I'm probably just going to cut all of that off and redo everything because they just ran the metal over the top of the rivet and everything. So I'm going to make it look better, take that off and reinforce it and weld it back together, make it look a lot better. So the only thing now that I'm worried about is there is a slight twist, not as much of a twist as I thought originally, but there is a twist in the frame. And you can see, even though my garage floor is not perfect, I've got all these jack stands up the same height, and I've got about 1/4 to 3/8, maybe 1/2 an inch at the most, right there. So I don't know if that's detrimental or not, so I got to do some research on that and see, am I going to have to try to get that twist out of there or not. So that's the only concerning thing at this point, but I am going to go ahead and fix these horns. Let's see, I believe this is the transfer case, where the transfer case mounts. So I gotta fix these holes, you know, bend that back up, weld it back together. Those holes have been reamed out, so I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if they were trying to reposition it because of the wreck when they were rebuilding it or something. I don't know, but not quite sure what I'm going to do with those holes yet. If I'm going to patch them in and try to re-drill them to their original size, like this one here, or not. Like I mentioned before, lots of crappy rust holes. So we got a bunch of work to do on the bottom side here, and there's some down in there too. Bunch of work to do on this cross member, but I think it's repairable, especially with all the things that I've been repairing that I didn't think I could. I think I can get this. It'll be some work, but I can get it. A couple little bends here and there in the frame, but other than that, it's pretty good. All the crazy bolts that I couldn't get out and all the pieces that I couldn't get off this thing are done. So as soon as I get the weld work and the tweaking done, which is not actually going to be a ton of work. I mean, it's going to be quite a bit, but not going to take me too long. So I am super close to priming the whole frame. But I think before anything else, I may prime the frame first before I start fitting body panels. But this is an exciting moment here. This will be the first piece I mock back up. There we go, running board. First piece mocked back up. That's a big milestone though, actually. You know, just seeing that thing sit on there. Alright, back with you guys. So here it is. Cleaned it up pretty well. I still need to clean up the shape of that hole, but for the most part I've got it welded back together. I used my other welder because the welder I've been using is not quite as good for such thick metal, so I used my my other MIG welder and some flux wire, and I obviously have gotten a little bit spoiled with gas welding because I do not really like welding with flux wire. It's just messy. But anyway, it's pretty much done, cleaned up. All that goober welded crap on the side is gone now. Got these mostly straightened out, so I think they're pretty well straight. I got a little bit of bending left maybe, but that's should be pretty good. And the other thing too is that this brace right here. So that brace was what holds up the radiator, and it got totally, sorry about that, it got totally shredded, probably from the wreck, I guess, and then someone tried to weld it back on, so it's got all kinds of goober welds everywhere, and it's all busted to pieces. And I've got the other pieces here. This one fits right up here, and they actually made up almost perfectly. So I'm gonna clean all the goober welds off, take those rivets out. Not real sure if I may just weld it back on, just because I don't want to pull the belly pan of this cross member off, because that's probably the only way that I could get new rivets or even bolts and nuts in there, unless I wanted to try to fish bolts through that bigger hole and then up through here. Wouldn't be that hard. I probably could do that, but then to back them up on the backside would be too hard. I could do some nut certs in there, But honestly, I may just weld it on. I'm not sure yet. I'll make a decision. But first, I have to rebuild this. So basically, I have to take some new pieces of steel. And I was going to try to fit that back together, but it's kind of hard with one hand. I don't know where I'm at here. Right about there. And then there's this. I really don't know what this piece is. This might have just been... Oh, I see. Yeah, that went right there. Damn, this thing. This is 7 gauge. If I'm not mistaken, that's 7 gauge. It's thick metal. I don't know how it got ripped like it did. When everything else, I mean, it was a lot of damage. You know, I've been repairing damage for months and months, but kind of interesting how that got so ripped. But it did, so I'm going to take it over to my welding table, and I've got a bunch of scrap metal, and luckily it's all 7 gauge, so it's all exactly the same thickness as that piece. I mean luckily, because there is not much metal to be had at the salvage yards these days, and during COVID it's been really hard to find sheet metal. Luckily I had stocked up on sheet metal a while back, but I did have to go buy some, but I had to get galvanized and grind the galvanizing off before I could weld it. So, but anyways, that's what I'm going to do, is take all these little scrappies and try to recreate that bracket, because they don't make those brackets anymore, or at least the shops don't carry them. So I got super lucky that these pieces went almost exactly back together. So you can see how I tack welded those two pieces and this back one. I slid it underneath that washer, and it just, I don't know how I got it to just slide right back into place perfectly, but I did. So it's all tacked together, and now I can actually see what it's supposed to look like and recreate it. I can just take measurements on all these dimensions. Should be good to go. I'm going to bend this where the hole just ripped the rivet out. So I'm going to bend that hole back down into about where it should be, and I'll probably take it over to the frame. Let's see here. Yep. So I'll be able to mate it up here. I'll probably clean all the welds up and everything, but that's about what it should look like right there. Actually, it looks like it has a curve. That's going to be fun to try to recreate. Uh-oh. Got my work cut out for me. There it is. There's the finished product. I'm pretty happy with it. It came out almost exact. So the only thing I'm a little worried about is angle. So if I go put this on, it sits on there perfectly, but it needs to actually tip like upward just a hair, like maybe a 1/4 inch. But the way it sits might be tipped down just a tad, so we'll see. Hopefully it'll work okay. But I'm going to try to weld it on, and I'll probably try to give it as much tip as I possibly can and get her in place. But I think I may grab the radiator support bracket and all that stuff, and kind of fit it on here and just kind of see if it sits straight up and down or not. Okay, I got the radiator mount tacked on. and thought that was kind of cool. I put the grill on. Kind of a cool shot. But radiator mount is done and tacked on, so I'm going to just leave it tacked until I fit everything final, and then I'll final weld that on. So as I may have mentioned before, we've got, these are the running board supports, and I thought all 4 of them were rusted out and shot, but actually, come to find out, the 2 front ones are good. So thankfully, I don't have to repair those because I'm getting tired of doing metal work. But the 2 rear ones are horrible. That one's better than the one I'm working on right now. But I pulled the other one off, and I'm doing the same thing I've been doing with other stuff because they don't make these and they're hard to find. So this is where it was rusted out. So I went ahead and I started to clean it up because I was going to do a different technique, but I changed my mind. So now what I'm going to do is I cut this piece, this little strap, and that little strap's going to get welded in right into there. So now it's not quite the same gauge metal, but I think with the weld and everything, and really truly still have the curve here, which creates some structural integrity. I'm hoping that it'll bring some of the strength back and it'll be okay. But that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to show all the work and everything. I might show the end result, of course, of maybe just this piece, but I've got to do the sides also. You can see it's rusted out through the sides there also. But that's where I'm at. Got to get 2 of these done, and then the next step will be to fix this piece here. Not actually sure what it is. Some kind of a probably splash guard of some kind or something, because it's not structural. It's just lightweight sheet metal. And then I got to do the belly pan for this that I ripped off before. There might be a couple little spots that I need to weld, tack up, like fix that. Back at you again on the frame. Looks like we got some pretty... This is the only significant frame damage that I've got. This was where it rusted through. This is the only spot that it actually rusted through like that. So that's in a pretty critical location. That's right where the rear spring mount mounts. I ground the rivets off and took the spring mount off, and big old hole in here, hole on the bottom, so you can see the little, maybe see the little line. I built a little template. I'm gonna splice in a piece just like I've been doing with body work, but of course it'll be with some heavy gauge steel. Splice that in, and then when I do flip the frame upside down and start working on the bottom, this bottom piece, I will probably end up just bracing it with a big thick chunk of steel, and I'll probably extend it out maybe a good 8 to 10 inches on either side, but pretty heavy duty support there. And then I get to the inside corners of this cross member. Not as bad as it looked, but it's still bad enough where I've got to do some pretty significant patchwork. But that's where we're at. The only significant damage I've got, so working on repairing it. Okay, running board support turned out really nice. I don't care about the pitting in the weld that shows on the cracks down in here, because it's not going to show. Might as well leave the material there so it's stronger. But came out nice and smooth. Now all I got to do is drill the other holes, because there's 1, 2, 3 holes plus a little drainage hole. So I'll drill a little drainage hole, and then those other 2 holes back here. And then we're good. Then I just got one more to do. Still gotta do that one. That one's in worse condition. Alright guys, it's been a long few months and working every single day, so pretty excited. There's the frame all stripped down. I've got the cross member. It's totally welded up with that bottom plate. Sticks out a little bit here. I'm not really worried about it. If I have to, I can cut it off. But cross member is solid now. The other side where the leaf spring mounts, that's all bolted up and rebuilt and enforced and everything, so it's solid now. Running board support, one of them is done. I still have to do another one. Radiator mount, again, is done. Everything's cleaned up, fixed. The frame is 99.9% ready to go. Subframe, this is really exciting just to see the subframe sitting on there, but I've got the wood subframe sitting on there. Pretty cool. I'm getting super excited now. Sorry about the compressor again. Next step, I'm actually going to go ahead and fit the bed sides up on here in the next couple minutes here. We'll see if they'll stay. I don't have holes drilled or, all the mounting locations, set, but I might be able to clamp them on so at least I can see what it looks like. But I am pretty much, I think I'm ready to actually start fitting body panels now. Everything's stripped down, so I brought the cab back from back in my hometown where I grew up, and it's not totally done being stripped yet, but pretty close. And so I'll go get all the fenders and all that stuff, and I'll just kind of temporarily bolt everything up. I'll have a whole bunch of clamps and stuff to hold everything in place, but at least I'll see the body of the truck come to life here pretty soon. I'm super excited about it. So, pretty exciting update.